Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Sunset Safari. My name is Taylor. On camera with me is Manu, and that's a lioness. And hopefully she's going to get up and do something. I think we've arrived here just in the nick of time. No sleeping cats. Remember, this is live, this is interactive, this is happening as we speak in two different locations. In Africa, we're in Kenya in the Masai Mara National Reserve, and Tristan will be bringing you hopefully some leopards from the Sabi Sands in South Africa. So you can get hold of us by either hashtagging Safari Live on Twitter or alternatively chatting to us on the YouTube chat too. But Manu has now said to me, he says, why do I get the feeling that she is not alone, that there are other lions here? There could quite well be some just hidden amongst some of surrounding her. I don't know if she's hungry though. She looks like she's got quite a big belly. It's a bit difficult to see from here. A whole flock of guinea fowl walked right past her and she looked at them. I suppose she's also at that age now where she's not particularly interested in chasing after birds, to speak. When you're a young little lion, that's of course very enticing. But there are plenty animals around us. We have got so many wildebeest, so many zebra, and she's actually staring across at them. It's really nice to see such an abundance of game. I'm very, very excited to spend the next couple of days across the river. But have a look at that wide open space. There's actually not too many gaps in between the animals. There's so many of them. Well, that's quite cool. Considering we drove for, I think it was about 40 minutes today at one point in the triangle, and we only saw a warthog that ran away from us and a juvenile battalier. That was all we saw. It was crazy. So there's plenty options for her. However, the only problem is that we've got a time limit, so we can't hang around here for too long, as we have to get towards Talek. That's where we will be staying for the night, and it's very, very far from this particular area. But we'll spend a little bit of time with this lion and see what she gets up to. Like we've noticed, she's yawning. She's been grooming herself, so she's obviously waking up and getting ready to do something. What's she going to get up and do? I suppose you're just going to have to wait and see. But she's eyeing them out. She's just staring at them, hoping, plotting her next move. Isn't that such a beautiful shot with a little mountain in the background as well? Truly spectacular scenery out here in the Masai Mara Reserve. Right, and like I said, it isn't just me out here today. You'll meet Scott in a little bit too. Hopefully he's going to find some cheetah. But the next gentleman you're about to, well, see is Tristan, and he'll be driving in South Africa.
Well, we are going to be driving in South Africa, Taylor, under a very different sky than what we had this morning. It was cloudy, overcast and chilly this morning, and we're now in an afternoon of absolute bright sunshine and heat, but it's a wonderful afternoon. Now, as Taylor mentioned, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I do have a Senzo, and we are live from South Africa, just like Taylor is from Kenya, and that means that it is interactive. So hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, that's the one, I almost forgot what the name of that platform was, and also on the YouTube chat if you would like to get hold of us. Now, I'm stopped under a shady marula tree to say hello to all of you, because we also need to get Senzo on camera, because it's that time of the day where Senzo needs to do the time lapse. So Senzo, off you go. You can go and show everybody what you dressed as today. Senzo, have you got your crocodile shirt on? I think he's got the crocodile shirt on today, which is his green shirt from the Mara, and he's got crocodile, he's got khaki shorts, his bush hat, and I think he's not even wearing socks. No, he's not. So he's in his normal kind of situation. Now, Senzo, before you go and do your time lapse, come on. You can't go. Come on. You have to come show everybody what you look like in front, and you have to say hello to everyone. There we go. You see, Senzo's always got nice things on his wrist. We'll have to ask him to show those a little bit later. And then his bright green t-shirt, which means that he's looking very dapper this afternoon and very casual on a bright, sunny spring afternoon. Right, now I'm not the only one, like Taylor said. I am also going to be joined by another bearded gentleman this afternoon, and that is Mr. Scotty Dyson himself, and I believe he was all the way on the other side of the river as well, so I wonder how he's doing and what he's got in store this afternoon.
Hello everyone, and it is a great pleasure to welcome you to this wonderful scene. Look at all those clouds and a bit of rain falling. It's a moody afternoon in the Mara, as I'm sure Taylor's already told you. My name's Scott. I'm teamed up with Jahawi on camera, and we are heading off in the search of some cheetah this afternoon. There were actually 7 cheetahs seen in a very small area this morning. 5 of them were a coalition of males called the Musketeers. They managed to catch and kill a topi, and we were lucky enough to share that with some of you. Then there was another male and female that were together, but a male lion chased the male cheetah away, and then through default, a lioness ended up chasing the female cheetah away. But they're not too far away from one another, and we're not sure what they were up to. The cheetah researchers said the name of this female cheetah is Kisiri, and I'm not sure if we've actually seen her before. The only info I got from the researcher briefly this morning was that she lost some cubs in December last year. So who knows? She may have already given birth to another litter and lost them, and they now may be mating again, because they typically will mate very quickly or very soon after losing cubs. Either way, if we can see cheetah mating this afternoon, that would be incredible. If we could see the Musketeer coalition interacting with any other cheetah, be it male or female, that will also be something very epic, and something that is certainly on the cards, because they are all so close to one another. Good stuff. We're going to keep rushing on. We've got about another 15 or 20 minutes down a bumpy road until we get there, and we'll be sure to call you back as soon as we are in position.
Sorry about that, everybody. I just heard the radio beeping, and then I thought something was going on. But we're alive now. So we're still sitting with our lioness, who's just looking about at the moment. It's particularly windy. Not really sure what she's going to get up and do just yet, but that's what's so exciting about a safari, is especially when you've got a lioness surrounded by zebra and wildebeest and topi. The options are honestly endless. And then, as I said, that she puts her head on her paw and goes to sleep. That's okay. That's no problem at all. That's not going to let Manu and our spirits get trampled by the fact that we're watching a sleeping lion now. I just can't wait to see all the exciting things, because the last time I came across the side of the river, my goodness, do you remember? I don't know if it was Sebastian that was my lucky charm, but we had leopards, we had crossings, we had crocodiles with nests, we had lions, we had wildebeest stampeding towards us, baby Thompson's gazelles, lots of bat-eared foxes. It was really action-packed. It was so exciting. So I cannot wait to go exploring tonight. We won't do too much exploring. We'll basically just be meandering towards the Talek Gate, so further southwest of us. And then tomorrow morning, oh, I'm excited. As soon as that gate opens, I'll be the first one waiting there to come through. And then, well, the world is my oyster for the rest of the day. And hopefully I'll find some cool things to show you on the tomorrow's sunset safari. Now, I think she's a relatively young lion just by looking at her face. Her nose is relatively pink. She's also got quite a few spots to her. She just doesn't look, and she doesn't look huge. And we've seen the lionesses in the Mara are massive in comparison to South Africa. They just seem to be a lot more muscled up, whether it's because they're traveling further. They've obviously got this pent-up muscle all in their shoulders and right down to their hindquarters. I'm not actually sure, but she doesn't look like she's fully grown just yet. Now you don't look so full. Now you're starting to actually look a little bit on the thin side. She's not letting the flies bother her either. They're all surrounded her face. Those little black dots that you can see, it's not a pattern. That is flies. Now, Philip Lioness could take down. Well, I suppose that depends. I would say a young giraffe, which she'd be able to take down by herself, no problem. A young buffalo, a juvenile buffalo, an adult wildebeest, no problem. But I'd say maybe biggest in terms of sort of height would probably be a sub-adult giraffe. And when I say sub-adult, just a couple of years old, you know, not particularly big. Lionesses are incredible hunters, and we were chatting about this the other day. The whole thing about predators and when they catch something is that they need to get it to the ground. They can't kill it when the animal is standing up, so they need to bring it down to the floor. So as long as she can build up enough speed and use that momentum as she leaps toward the animal and knock it off its feet, she's good to go. And then from there, I've seen these cats that are so quick once they've knocked an animal to the ground to get into position to either suffocate it. If it's small enough prey, they'll often then bite the back of the neck and just break their neck. It's probably the easiest and the quickest way to go, but most of the time when lions hunt, their prey is not that small. But we'll sit here for a little bit longer, see how it goes, but we are going to have to start heading towards some of the crossings and make our way through. Let's send you all the way across to South Africa with my dear friend Tristan, and maybe Hosana or Tamba are going to be around.
Not just yet. These are something that both of those young males would love to tuck into, and we know quarantine definitely limited the population this morning as well. So, a few little warthogs, they're a shame. They were sitting right in the heart of some shade. It looked like they were really suffering a little bit, and they were all kind of squashed up together in this little shady section, just trying to stay out of the sun. The sun feels brutal this afternoon in comparison to what it was in the early hours of this morning. It's amazing how much warmer it is and how that cloud has burnt off. But you can see they're now trotting back towards a little shady area, and everybody's trying to kind of line up in the small shade that is available. Why they haven't just headed into an area with bigger trees, because if they run down the hill a little bit, there's lots of nice shady trees further down that they can sit under and not have to worry. I suppose there is also a lot of food in this area, and warthogs love to feed in disturbed areas. They like these kind of fire break sections where there's a little bit of shorter grass that they can walk around in. Ultimately, it's much safer for them. You can see predators coming, but also when they get down and they're rooting around, it's much easier for them to dig out things in these more clear, open sections than it is in denser, thicker areas. They're able to see what they're doing, also not being poked in the eye by various grasses and shrubs and trees. And so it just makes a little bit more sense to be out in this section, especially if they can find some shade. But what I'm going to try and do is just get through past that tree there to see if maybe we can just get a slightly better view for Senzo, that he doesn't have to watch all of this through branches and try and focus around all of these horrible little stickies. But there we go. Everybody seems to be tucked up fairly comfortably around. Romit, you're saying that the warthogs have a distinct way of running. Are their legs very stiff? No, their legs aren't really stiff. I mean, they run because their legs are probably quite short in relation to the length of their body, much like something like a sausage dog would run, or a dachshund for others that don't know what a sausage dog is. But it's a pretty similar concept, is that at the end of the day the legs are quite short considering the length of the body, and so they have to have a fairly stiff-legged gait in order to propel themselves. So I don't think they have stiff legs, it's just that that's the way their body is designed, and certain animals have certain gaits. It's much like us as people. According to how long your legs are will determine kind of how your gait is and how you're able to walk and what your sort of stride pattern will be. So it's just probably just relation of body size versus leg size and length that causes that. But you can see how they're all trying to kind of congregate around the smallest bush willow. It is actually quite comical watching them trying to get in underneath that shade. It almost looks as though the one on the far left has been left out of this shady little section. And I was saying earlier that there's a number of big trees around, and they've chosen probably the smallest one of all of those trees. There's a beautiful big marula slightly down from where they are that's casting a nice big shadow over the road and over this firebreak section, but yet they are deciding it's better to be under a tiny bush willow than a big marula. Super cute though. It's always nice to see warthogs, and we generally don't get too many views of them. They tend to be fleeting glimpses as they trot off and run away. And the reason why is because in this section that we're in is not too many airstrips or areas where there's a lot of traffic that goes up and down that they will see a lot of vehicles. If you go to Arathusa or Chitwa, there's a number of warthogs there that are very relaxed because of the airstrip transfers. The cars go in and out and past them, and they actually get quite accustomed to it. Whereas in this section, because of the lack of that and lack of people spending a lot of time with them, they tend to be a lot more unrelaxed, and also probably find a number of cars that do spend time with them is generally when something is hunting. So that's hunting them. So that's why they have a situation where they'll be a little bit more wary in this area than they will on those airstrips and places like that. I see one is now laid down, which is quite nice. Maybe they just can't be bothered to move around too much in the heat. It was funny because they ran out into the sun, did an about turn, and went back again. I think they've realized it is also far too warm to be sitting right out in the open and not in some shade. Ethan, you're asking if warthogs are good swimmers. So, no, not really. You'll find warthogs are quite clever, is that they know that they can't swim very well, So what they rather do is go into areas where there's a bit of mud and a little bit of water, but it's shallow. So it's like us going and then sitting at the edge of a water hole where the water comes just up to the right level, up to your chest or something like that. And that's what they like. So they won't go into water where they have to swim. And the reason for that is in Africa, anywhere where a warthog would be able to try and get into swimming depth would generally house crocodiles, and that's going to be incredibly dangerous. These guys would be a crocodile's dream come true, and so swimming around in water here is very, very, very silly if you can't stand in it. And even standing in some of these water points, a warthog would be susceptible to being preyed upon by crocodiles, and that's why you find warthogs won't go to a place like Chitwa Dam to drink or wallow. They'll find small muddy little puddles that are near roads or near drainage lines, and they'll go and rather mud wallow in those natural little depressions than don't you love the tails when they run? It's the funniest thing. Off they go. Whole family. She's done very well to raise all of those little ones as well. Very cool. Right, well, they've run off. We're not going to bug them any further. We're going to carry on down the hill and towards Treehouse Dam to go and do our other time lapse for Sebastian. And so while I do that, Taylor McCurdy seems to be having a wonderful start to her afternoon. Hopefully her eyes are much better. She seems to not have said much about it, so I would take it that there was a good effect from the milk, and she has got a beautiful, lovely predator.
We have had a great start. Just discussing the sparkle that is in this line. Look about her, don't you think? She's eyeing those wildebeest. Look, now she's putting her nose. There's also a little bit of girl. We're egging you on. We're on your side today. Normally I'm on the side of the wildebeest and zebra, but I think I'm going to change that up. I support them more. Yeah, because about 99% of the time. But this lioness is, I don't know what, there's something about her. I really, really, really like her. I don't know who she belongs to, what pride she's come from. For the moment, she seems to be on her own. I haven't seen any other cats within the area. And I actually wish we could follow her. What we might even do is, we might even come back to this area tomorrow morning and see if we can't find her again and follow her around for the day if she does do anything exciting. She's very cool though. I think if I was a lion, maybe she's my spirit animal. Okay, that's alright. I don't know, I think maybe we're in a little bit of a dodgy spot. We have stayed still, but with the bad weather coming about as well, it's moving in fairly quickly. It wouldn't surprise me if that's what's interfering with the communication. And I believe I actually I froze. The picture froze, so apologies for that. A couple of Masai Mara National Reserve gremlins, but that's okay. We'll deal with them a little bit later. Probably the wind. And we're going to try not to move. And also you can see there's a little bit of movement in the camera. Don't worry. Mine has got steady hands. Again, it's just the wind is blowing us around quite a bit, that the vehicle is actually shaking, which is impressive. And now I'm starting to feel very small little drops of rain. It doesn't look like anything massive, but there are definitely a couple of clouds about in the sky today. Actually, you know, just make sure that I keep everything covered up. So while you watch that line, I'm going to quickly put something over the monitor, put a jacket over the monitor. If it doesn't get wet, everything else should be fine. Now, sorry, I'm struggling with comms, but I'm going to try and decipher what Kirst has just said. It's a question from Romit, and I think it was, why is the fur on the inside of lions' ears so big or so fluffy or so long, something along those lines? I'm just going to answer it anyway. Well, I would assume that it would, like we as humans, we've got hair in our nose, and I suppose, do we have hair in our ears? trying to feel. No, I can't really feel too much hair in our ears. But typically, it's to try and keep the dust out and dirt out. Obviously, the lions' ears are super important, and they want to try and protect them as much as they can. So I would say that it's got to do with trying to keep them as clean as possible. Only problem, though, with having lots of hair like that is that it hides the ticks and all the other little parasites that may be living in there, and they will be attracted to that spot too because it is so warm and makes it, I suppose, a bit difficult when you're trying to groom. Well, she wouldn't be able to groom her own ears. She's going to have to rely on someone else. See, look at her. You know who she reminds me of? Kuchava. Now, Kuchava's not a lion. Kuchava is a leopard, and she's my favorite leopard in northern Sabi Sands. And I've just been sitting and watching her and going, there's something familiar about her. Her mannerisms are exactly the same. Whenever I've had a sighting with Kuchava, she doesn't just sit still. She's sitting, well, technically, her bottom is still on the ground, but her head is bobbing up. She's looking around. She's very intrigued about her surroundings. And I think that's just an indication that she's fairly young. She's amused by lots of different things. She possibly hasn't got a very good attention span and gets distracted as well. But she's a lovely cat. I wish she would get up for us though and walk around, and I'd like to see how big she is so I can just get an idea of how old this cat really is. I mean, from the way that she's sitting, I would say she's maybe about 2.5, 3 years old, somewhere around there. Chris, please can you repeat the name? I'm so sorry. I got the question. Nick. Thank you, Manu. Manu says Nick. The question was from Nick. Apologies, everybody. We'll just take every step as it comes into. No. Nick with an F. Fick. I don't know, I'm so sorry, I've just butchered your name. I didn't mean to do that, but you were wondering if it was uncommon for a young lioness to be on her own. It's not the first time I've seen it. I've actually seen it a couple of times. Actually, driving around in Kruger, I've spotted lots of fairly young lionesses on her own. I'm not sure why she would be out here. Maybe she's trying to avoid some males that are in the area, and she's, moved away from the pride. I've also seen that happening before where they play hide and seek. Maybe the pride is nearby and they're just not up and awake just yet. They could be laying behind one of these termite mounds, behind one of these shrubs. And this is what we're saying. We actually don't know how many lions are here. And how many times have we had it where we've said, oh, there's only one, and a little bit later, some more pop out of the bushes. So there could be more. Maybe she's looking for a pride. Maybe she got lost, she got left behind, and she's going to try and find her way back. But she's not contact calling. Remember, we had an interesting sighting this morning with the sausage tree pride lions in the triangle, and that lioness was contact calling. We know she wasn't calling any other members of their pride because, well, there were two adults there and the 4 cubs, and that's typically who we see. So it could be a number of different things. We can only speculate until she gets up and she shows us what she's after, whether it's wildebeest or she's going to go marching, like we said, trying to relocate her pride. Or maybe she's just decided, you know what, I'm sick of living with family. I want to go out on my own for a little bit. Oh no, the rain. It's starting to go. I don't think it's going to be big rain though. I think thankfully it's quite windy, so the clouds are going to blow fairly quickly over the top of us. It's just a mizzle at the moment, a miserable drizzle. You can see the rain just behind that lioness too. That's far away though. That's not going to get us, but there's essentially a similar cloud going overhead at the moment. What do you think, Manu? Still alright? Still good. It's not particularly pleasant, but it's alright. We'll survive. I've sat through worse before. But if it does get any heavier than this, we'll probably have to turn the car around. I can do that for you, Manu. We can actually should we do that? We're going to reposition quickly, and what we're going to do is we're going to just strategically park, because we're not going to stay here for too much longer. So let's have one last view. We'll just wait for this rain to stop. It's just a small cloud. I'm going to park the back of the vehicle towards the rain, and then we should be alright. Maybe we even find the rest of the lions. That's also a possibility. Oh my goodness, there's so many animals. Elephants down that way. Just change it up a little bit. I don't know why I have to do sound effects when I drive. You'd swear I was a child. Oh, that's so much better. That's nice. Now we're not getting wet anymore. So sometimes you can actually avoid the rain just by doing that. We keep the back covers closed at all times, just a small section, and then you put your bottom in the direction of the rain, and voila, all is good. It actually worked out perfectly because we would have just been staring at the back of her head. Is she missing the tip of her tail, Manu? It looks like it, doesn't it? I wonder what happened there. That looks like quite an old injury. It could have happened when she was much younger, maybe when she was a cub. Crocodile could be another. She got a bite mark on that tail. I wonder if she hasn't been running away from some males. I know she's just been harassed. Possibly. Well, we're going to say goodbye to this lioness because we need to go through some crossings now and head towards Talek like we said. But hopefully we'll meet up with this lion maybe tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. Tristan is still driving around. I wonder if he's going to live true to his Leopard King name.
Well, Taylor, hopefully it'll be nice if we do find a little spotted cat again this afternoon. You know how I am. I'm a bit obsessed. It's a problem, I know. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is, and there's nothing really I can do about it. It's just how life has worked out. Not that it's the worst thing to be sort of besotted over and to be addicted to. I feel like there's worse things in this world that one could have an addiction, and leopards is definitely not in that category of bad things. Now, it's still very warm, so I'm just kind of driving around for now, just taking it easy. I just want to try and see what else is around, see if there's maybe some ellies. I know I keep saying this every afternoon, and maybe we'll get lucky with elephants somewhere, but at the end of the day, at some point, they've got to come back. So it's not that all the elephants in Kruger have disappeared and are no longer here. It's just that they are all down on rivers and various other places, and eventually they will come back, and so it's worth looking for them every single afternoon to try and find them. I like spending time with ellies, and also I know that if we do find a cat, it's going to be really quite sleepy. I doubt there's going to be too much movement, especially because it was a dreary, overcast, cold, cool morning with a bit of kind of drizzle here and there. That meant that a lot of the cats were fairly active. If we look at Quarantine, he was still moving around excessively when we finished the drive, and actually heard as I was getting back to camp that he had crossed north into Torchwood and had gone that way, and so you know his movement was still going at that time. So I'd imagine now that the sun is out, a lot of the cats that were fairly active this morning are now going to be having a little nap. The other interesting news that I had this morning, which I forgot to tell everybody, and there's two things actually about this morning's drive that I need to remember. The first thing is that the Angama Pride were trying to kill a buffalo apparently, but they were all the way on the Ottawa Simbambili boundary, right in the sort of corner of the Sabi Sands in a place called Picanini, Utah. It's a tiny little square on the right on the edge of the Sabi Sands that's joined with Simbambili and Ottawa, which is part of Singita's Traverse, so they're very far away. Whether they got the buffalo down, I'm not quite sure. While I was with Quarantine, that was all playing out and they were trying to go after the buffalo, so hopefully they managed to secure a meal. It would be nice for them if they did, and also for those little cubs. And the other thing I need to remember is that I completely forgot this morning, which how I forgot I don't really know, and I need to apologize probably to those two little leopards, is that I forgot completely to mention Misha and Duna as part of the cub set for Karula. I completely skipped them, which is a shame because at the end of the day they were two male leopards that I saw a lot of and really had some cool sightings with them. So I apologize to those two leopards, and hopefully my leopard luck will not be stained by the fact that I forgot about two of Karula's offspring. And there was also a lot of excitement this morning and a lot of kind of talk around because there was reports of a leopard skull found on Little Gowrie, and a lot of people thought maybe it would be Karula's skull and there'd be some sort of ending to this whole story and to what has happened, but it turns out that it was just the lower canines of a baboon, and it was just the smallest part of them, and so it wasn't unfortunately Karula, and we still have no idea where she is, what happened, or what the story was. So it would have been nice just to have a bit of kind of closing off of that chapter for once and for all, but as it turns out apparently it's not for a leopard, and it's most definitely the dental structure for a baboon, which is a bit of I suppose a pity in a way and not a pity in the other way, because at the end of the day it would have been sad also to find Karula's skull. And that's really about the news that I have for today. That's the Sabi Sands gossip. That's what's happened in the Sabi Sands Herald during the morning, and where all that sort of talk of the town has been. I just had a little chat to some of the other guides this morning just to kind of catch up with them and see what's been going on. Also just to try and find out where if there's been any wild dogs or elephants, and everybody is telling me that the elephants are being seriously scarce. Nobody is seeing many elephants, no, not in the west, not down here in the east. They said there's been a few elephants right on the Mala Kruger National Park boundary and Cheetah Plains, that area, but it's been very few and far between and not very many at all. And then as for buffalo, well, it's just the sort of trend that we've been following over the last year of very few buffalo around. And so it seems as though every time any little buffalo steps foot anywhere in this area, the Angama Pride is onto them on a flash. And that's why the Angama Pride is where they are. They're there in that area because there actually are a lot of buffalo around Picanini, Utah. The Mangane Pride used to take advantage of that quite a lot. But there was a beautiful bird that has just flown into the tree. It's a black-headed oriole, and it's good at this time of the year always to check these orioles. We heard Eurasian golden oriole the other day. African golden oriole is a potential suspect in this area as well. And so whenever you see a flash of yellow and bright yellow like that, it's always good to immediately go and have a look. Now, what's wrong with this bird? This bird looks as though it's got something to do with its leg that isn't quite right. And just, can you try to zoom in there for me, Sands, and see if that we can get a little bit closer? I don't know if you've got some branches in your way. It almost looked like it was holding one leg up. It is holding one leg up. Can you see that the one is kind of tucked up against its body by the looks of things? I wonder if there's maybe a little injury there or something. It seems as though it's not kind of sitting as well as it should. It's amazing though how birds can kind of survive even with one leg. I've seen many a bird with one leg and it managed to kind of work it out. But it seems as though it's not quite right on that right leg. The left leg is gripping a little further down and the right leg doesn't look as though it's actually gripping. You can see how the oriole is battling to balance a little bit. It's kind of trying to have to use that tail in the body just to work things out. Wonder what's happened. It's unfortunately human interference that can cause these things. So people that leave wires or particularly fishing line, that's one of the worst things in the world to be leaving lying around, and that often happens that birds, unfortunately, it get wrapped around their legs and they then get damaged legs. I don't think that's the case in this particular individual, but there's definitely something wrong with that right leg. It wasn't sitting nicely at all. You could see it was almost using its body to balance on the tree itself, and it's always a shame when you see that. But the bird itself looked fairly healthy. I mean, its mouth was open and it was gular fluttering, which is expected in this very, very hot afternoon heat, and so that's not a sign that there's anything wrong with it, but it looks fairly healthy. It's not like it looks in bad shape or as though it's not able to fly or anything like that. So one of those little bush mysteries as to what's happened to its leg. I suppose it does happen from time to time. Right, now we are coming up towards Twin Dams. Hopefully there will be something at Twin Dams. I really would like to find some elephants somewhere around here swimming. That's kind of what I've been hoping for, is with these hot temperatures, it's perfect swimming weather, and I was hoping that maybe, just maybe, on one of these pans there would be some ellies having the most epic mud bath, but it seems as though the last few weeks nothing has come of it, and looking forward to those days. I always loved Chitwa Dam for that. Chitwa Dam is one of my favorite places in the summer, just because of the elephant swimming that you get there. You get these massive big bulls that come in and they have the best time. You'll find 4 or 5 of them will come there and they'll all start swimming, and it's even the big old bulls that you would expect to kind of not really be into swimming at all and would be generally sort of loners. They even come in and it's games are played. They push each other around, they slap the water with their trunks in and out, and it really becomes a whole sort of affair that happens. And sometimes they spend a long time there. I remember seeing elephants the one day, they would go in and out, but they spent pretty much about 9 hours around the dam itself and trying to kind of go in and out, and they would go and feed for a little bit and then back to the dam, swim around, go back feeding, back to the dam, and they just kind of went from the open area into the water. It was like little kids at the beach. It was amazing to watch, and they just had this kind of sheer enjoyment in the way that they were going about things and doing their business at the dam. Now, this area that we're in, it's always important just to check the second lower dam when you're at Twin Dams. This little section on our left is always quite productive for little birds. It's a place where birds are often, well, kind of rarer birds hang around because it's quite marshy. We know we've seen white-faced whistling ducks nesting there and having their little ones. We've seen the painted snipes there. There's all kinds of little things. It's also a great place for the birch's kukul, because the kukul likes to just kind of rest in those thickets and sit there. Right, Twin Dams, no, nothing for us today by the looks of things, other than a bit of blue-green algae. Once again, these algal blooms are not quite as bad as what it was a few days ago. You can see there's a little bit just on the edge here now, but not nearly as widespread as what we saw just after that cold patch. Just after the cold patch, it was really all over the dam, whereas now you can see it's just a little bit left. It slowly but surely is dissipating, which is good news, but it will really only kind of disappear completely when we get a lot more rain and the concentration of water gets higher, and with fresh water that comes in. This is just an oversupply of nutrients from all kinds of animals defecating around this area, and then also just the lack of water. The concentration of algae just gets bigger and bigger, and it's more noticeable when you see it like this. So looking at least a little better than what we saw. You can also see the fresh kind of blooms as opposed to the older ones. The fresh ones are those bright green, almost healthy looking ones, whereas these older ones, which is the ones we saw first, so there's the fresher stuff, and then the older stuff is that more kind of brown coloration that you see. Not very pretty at all. Other than that, Twin Dams is not very much else. There seems to be the odd Egyptian goose around that's just kind of bouncing around on the water, as they generally do. There's not a water hole in the whole of South Africa these days that doesn't have an Egyptian goose. It really is amazing how they've taken over. But while I kind of figure out what my next plan is and where I'm going to head from here, let's head back across to the Masai Mara, which sounds as though it's a little on the stormy side this afternoon. Hopefully Taylor Mac is not being rained upon and those golden locks are not getting wet.
So we've left our Lioness now. We're driving around in a very dusty road through lots and lots of different animals. What we're trying to do now, though, I'm trying to keep up with some cars, because Scott has said to me that I mustn't go through double crossing. We go through double crossing all the time. He says I should try and find there's another crossing, I think slightly west of it, and give it a bash and see how it goes. So I don't know if it's because it's an interesting 4x4ing experience, but we're going to give it a bash, and I think these cars might be heading there, might know a better way. I mean, essentially we just need to get to the Talek River, and I think go right until we find it. Manu's nodding his head. He says yes, that's correct. Thank you, Manu. my personal navigator on the vehicle today. It's actually not that hard to navigate around here. It's quite funny. We always talk about nighttime is completely different, but during the day in an area like this, it doesn't really matter where the road takes you. There's very few areas where you're going to get where you're not supposed to be driving. You know, it's not like the Sabi Sands where you're going to cross into a boundary in quite close proximity and drive on somebody else's private land. Of course, there are the conservancies, but we know that they are much further north of us and very, very far southeast of us as well. I mean, we can drive for hours and hours before I'd start panicking and sweat start dripping down my face that we were going to go into a conservancy that we weren't allowed to drive in. So I'm not too worried at all, ever. It's so nice to have the freedom of exploring. Like, it's really cool. I haven't felt free like this since Zambia, in fact. It's nice to be out in an area. Hello, Wildebeest. Shall we say hello to our friends? Because I haven't seen them for such a long time. Oh, yes. You crazy bunch, aren't you? And it's windy, too. So, of course, they're just going to run round and round and round. Maybe change direction if the wind changes direction. They're all starting to settle down. So these wildebeest are probably not going to go anywhere. They'll most likely stay as residents and live up in these areas, which is quite cool. They're both males. That's the one on the left is most certainly a male. It's difficult to tell the difference between male and female wildebeest. They look almost exactly the same. Obviously, female horns are slightly more slender. Actually, I think these are all boys. Yeah, they all look like males. And the males are a little bit more robust. You know, they're looking good. They really are looking healthy. When I first arrived, they looked tired. I think they've been traveling quite a distance. Of course, they've traveled quite a distance. They were looking not as sort of round as what they're looking now, which is quite cool to see the change, and not so panicked either. No crossings for you lot? This is really interesting, because I'm pretty sure that most of these are bulls. Look at those two circling around another. And the one on the right-hand side was actually grooming the other, which is quite cool. I don't think I've ever seen that before. I mean, typically male wildebeest mark and defend territories, and they find their favorite spot. But this is obviously a bachelor herd, and they're not really worried about mating with the females just yet. So they'll tolerate one another. When we see that with impala, of course. Beautiful, though. Okay, but we have to keep moving. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to sit and stay with animals for too long, just because we have got a time limit as to where we need to go to. And who knows what else we might find on the way. I don't see any predators here just yet, but I'm keeping my eye out. So we're just going to keep bumbling along. I'm excited to find this crossing. Do you think we're following those cars or no? We're going this way. Now, Neil, we're just talking about this actually. You're wondering how can you tell where you can and can't drive, and do I ever get lost? I get lost all the time. I'm always lost. That should just be my motto. But yeah, it's quite difficult to get lost unless you're trying to find a specific sighting. Then it could be difficult. Then of course you could get lost, because I was chatting about this morning as well. I don't know all the names of the different areas. Like in the Sabi Sands, it's smaller. You know the names of the roads. I don't know the names of these roads. I don't even know where I am right now. I'm just driving. I know that the Talek River is there. It runs like that. The Mara River is that side. That's all I really need to know. I can see the escarpment. I know where Talek is. Talek is in that direction. So eventually we'll be going around there. But we're probably going to cross a little bit further west and then cut back sort of further south. So, and then of course, I know that I'm allowed to drive anywhere in the triangle, and I can drive anywhere in the Masai Mara Reserve. I can actually off-road in all these areas, but I'm going to take my guiding sort of skills that I've learned, and you don't want to off-road all the time. If it's really wet, leave it alone, view the animals from a distance. There's no point going and creating a huge rut. Essentially, you're wrecking the grazing for the animals, and we don't want to do that. What else? If it's a sodic area, you don't want to drive over that. The soil's already heavily damaged. You know, the plant life is struggling. So yeah. And then if there's any areas where you are sort of certain, so I'm just checking around, there will be signs on some of the tracks that say road closed. Don't take those ones. You don't want to be driving those. I need to fix my shirt, sorry. My buttons are all popping. I don't know what just happened. I'm all fixed though. Right, Scott has been driving around. It sounds like he's got communication again with Final Control. Let's go and see what adventures he's been up to.
We have found a crazy wildebeest. Apologies, we've been gone for so long. We have been having some trouble with our radio. But watch this guy go. Could be a girl. It's definitely a youngster. And we've been here for about a minute, and it has not stopped playing around, bucking and bronking. And clearly, it's in a very, very good mood. I think we might need to actually get a little bit closer to it so we can get you some better shots, because it doesn't seem like it's going to let up anytime soon. Oh, it seems like it's trying to rope in some others to the fun and games. Who knows, maybe it's this moody weather that's creating them to have a bit of a spring in their step. The thoughts of more rain and more fresh green grass is a possibility. Now, sadly, the area where the cheetah are is not a signal area. They are lying on the wrong side of a hill, so we cannot show you any pictures of them, which is obviously not ideal, but there's lots of other animals out here, so I think, due to the fact that they are in a no-signal area for now and could be for quite some time, I'm thinking about heading out and just seeing what else is out there and what we can stumble upon. So, sadly, we've had to change our plans slightly, but we did have a great morning with the cheetah. So who knows, maybe we can go and find some lions or anything else, really, that presents itself to us. I hope you've been having fun with Taylor and Tristan. Jumbo! Haven't been getting too many updates as to what you've seen or heard due to the problems with my radio. It seems to only be working when I stop the car, which complicates things a little bit. Just all the All these wildebeest are going a bit crazy here. All right. Well, the individual that was bucking and bronking seems to have stopped for now. So we won't hang around much longer here. I'm astounded by how many wildebeest are still in this general area. Let's stop here and give you a bit of a pan around to show you. I mean, it's as if the migration's still here, and I guess essentially it is, just not the migration that heads to Tanzania. This is a migration that I'm told would ordinarily head east towards the Loiter Hills. It was a smaller migration, never as large as the one we all know about, and it stays within Kenya. But due to a lot of population growth and development in that area, they, I'm guessing, probably don't want to go back and would rather stay here. Which is obviously sad, but it is a reality of our planet, especially for areas in Africa where there are massive unfenced reserves. The human populations around the planet, especially in Kenya and Tanzania, are skyrocketing, and that is obviously putting pressure on these wild, open places that are not necessarily reserves, but still home to wild animals. So very, very interesting and very, very different to down south in South Africa, where I guess it would be fair to say we're a few years ahead of Kenya in terms of development and advancement. So we've already gone through what Kenya is going through now, and put up fences around a lot of our reserves and had clear boundaries between where animals and humans live. Which is not necessarily the answer. There are ways to coexist together, but human-wildlife conflict is a very, very big issue in Africa at the moment, due to the ever-expanding populations of our people. Sure, you got a taste of the numbers I was talking about, and literally all through these valleys there's large herds of wildebeest still. Good news for the Musketeer Coalition and all the resident predators. They're going to enjoy this. Okay, I think I'm just going to link away to somebody because I'm hearing strange alien noises through my earpiece, and I haven't heard anything from Kirsty, the director, for a while, so I'm guessing there is a problem. Toodle bye.
Well, Scotty, you're linking back to me, and that's okay. I've dressed up as Taylor already during the day today, so I suppose you had a 50-50 shot, and, well, that could have been either one. But it seems as though Scotty's comms are battling a little bit. Hopefully he'll come right. Maybe it's just to do with the area that he's in. Now, we've done a little bit of the Mulawati. There's a number of tiny little baby nyalas that were running around all over the show. Apparently we had a few little gremlins on our side too, so had to just stop. And hopefully the scimitar is going to land for us. There's a beautiful scimitar above us, which is always nice to see. They are a tough bird to get on camera. They tend to bounce around a little bit. It's just on the lower branches of this knobthorn. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, Sens. Maybe just come down a little bit. Oh, tough there. It is bobbing about quite low down in the tree. I think if I go forward, it's going to be better. It landed, it was on a nice open branch, and then it's now moved, unfortunately. So I'm going to try and reposition. Oh no, there it goes, unfortunately. Now, there's somebody also calling me on the radio, so let me get hold of them quickly. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, copy. So there it is all the way in the distance. Senzo says he can see it. Well done, Senzo. There is our scimitar, characterized by a small dark black kind of coloration from a distance. It does have a bit of iridescence to it. It's also got that dark colored beak. The only other bird that we get in this area that looks similar to this is the green woodhoopoo, or red-billed woodhoopoo is the old name for those of you that know some of the older names, and that has that bright red beak as the old name used to suggest, and is a far more green light kind of color than that dark color that you see out of the scimitable. Also, green woodhoopers tend to be flock birds. They tend to kind of spend a lot of time in large groupings together, whereas these scimitables are either on their own or in a pair. Now it looks like there's another one here. I wonder if this is maybe a young one with an adult or a pair. And I'm just going to try and get around the other side of this knobthorn. So there they go, there's a pair of them that are busy flying off together, and they're not the most agile flyers. They kind of long tail keeps them sort of down, and they battle a little bit with being able to speed off. They're definitely not a speedy bird. There's also a little fork-tailed drongo. They're never far away from the kind of ongoings of everybody else, always around. The drongos, you find that they kind of up and down all over the place and make quite a bit of a nuisance of themselves to many other birds. The scimitable, they won't worry too much, because at the end of the day the scimitable is not a predator, and so they don't need to dive bomb that and chase it. But what they will do is they sometimes will rob from other birds. So you'll find that drongos will try and mimic alarm calls of pearl-spotted owlets in order to be able to rob from them, which is quite amazing. Riti, you're asking why smaller birds have longer tails. Well, it's not all smaller birds that have longer tails. There's a lot of them that, in proportion to a bigger bird of prey like a Wahlberg's eagle or all of those kind of things, it's more according to their lifestyle and how they work. So you'll find that if it's a bird that hunts on the wing, generally they have quite a nice long tail that's able to also then fan out quite a bit. That helps them with being able to be stable in flight and be able to turn quite nicely. In the case of these scimitables, the tails and the woodhoopers, the tails actually act almost as a balancing section. So much like a long tail of a cheetah or a leopard, it helps in the same way. So these guys feed up against branches, and that long tail just acts as something that can just stabilize them on the tree when they perch there. And then it just depends on the function of the bird itself that will indicate what the tail length or size is and shape of it. Birds that are not hugely kind of acrobatic, if you want to call it that, in the air, things like bataliers, very short tails, they're not having to go after fast moving targets. The only one that to me is a surprise, and one that is a little bit kind of different, is the spine tails. Now the bones spine tails and mottled spine tails that you get right in the north of Kruger, they have absolutely no tail, but yet they are part of the swift and swallow kind of ilk, and they are incredibly fast flyers and move very quickly and do hunt on the wing. So they're a little bit of an enigma, but generally birds with the longer tails is more just to do with balance in flight than anything else. And then there's obviously other ways. So wagtails have long tails, not so much because they're great flyers. That's more of a behavioral thing where their tail is bouncing all the time, and it's just an indicator to others. And so it depends on what the bird does and what its habits and its behavior, which will indicate what the length of the tail actually means. Romit, who is the most noisy bird around camp? But you mean besides Taylor McCurdy? No, I'm just joking. We can't call Taylor McCurdy a bird. She's just loud, but she's not a bird. That's a bit of a derogatory term for a lady here in South Africa, if you call them a bird. I don't think our ladies in FC would be like to be called birds. But the loudest ones around camp, I would say the greenbacked Cameropteras are pretty loud. Hornbills and starlings, those three make quite a racket. And then there's, actually I forgot, the arrow-marked babblers are also a noisy bunch, and they're always around making plenty of racket and making sure that everybody knows that they're there. So there is a number of different birds, but the hornbills and the starlings I suppose we see the most. And it's not that they make a lot of noise. I suppose there is noise associated to them, but it's that they're always around the camp because they're always trying to raid the kitchen and trying to eat the food off the tables when it's breakfast or lunch. And so they're around, and when they're around they make a lot of noise and they draw attention to themselves by being a bit of a nuisance. And so maybe that's the birds we hear the most, is them. But definitely the greenback Cameroptera is also a bird that makes quite a lot of noise. It used to be called a bleating warbler, which I thought was a far better name, because it does sit there and just bleat away all day long incessantly. So they're pretty loud. And then the other culprit, who hasn't arrived yet in force but is most definitely the loudest bird without a doubt in the summer months around camp, is that of the woodland kingfisher. And they really don't shut up. They're the first one to start in the mornings, and they're the last ones when the evenings come to pass. Before it kind of gets really dark, they're the last ones to call. And then there is the one late summer into autumn, which is the monotonous lark. Now, the monotonous lark, as the name suggests, is fairly monotonous. It just does not stop. And what I was really surprised about with the monotonous larks of this last summer was how they just call all the way through the night. They just don't stop. They, normally birds will call a lot during the day and in the early hours of the morning and the afternoons, and then they kind of, especially passerines, they then tend to kind of sit in the trees and rest and relax and not say much during the night and attract too much attention to themselves from the various predators we have out here in the form of genets and civets and owls and those kind of things. But the monotonous lark, it does not care. It is going to just call away as long as it can, as much as it can, and just go on and on and on and on. And I would imagine a lot of different people learned very well what a monotonous lark sounds like. I know that a lot of the FC girls maybe had not heard a monotonous lark before this last summer, definitely learnt it very quickly. Now, at the moment, while we're driving around, we're talking about birds, and there's actually a nest right here. It doesn't look like the nest is actually active at the moment. It looks as though it might just be abandoned. It also looks like a lot of the sticks inside it and various other things have actually all kind of come apart a bit. But as to whose nest it is, difficult to say. It's a lot of quite sharp branches on the outside and then a nice sort of grassy inside to it. It almost looks a bit nest-like for something like a dove. You find doves do have nests that are built that way. It could also be something like one of the shrikes, or southern white-crowned shrikes build nests very similar to this, and particularly in thorn trees like knob thorns. I've seen a number of them nest in these kind of trees because the thorns just add a little bit of extra protection for the nest and for the chicks themselves. So doesn't look like anybody's home though. It looks as though it's inactive, but we'll just monitor it. It's always good to check all of these nests. There's a lot of nests that will be built at the moment. We're going to see a lot of little chicks, and hopefully we'll be able to check what's going on. I did check when I was at Treehouse. Now that I just thought about nests and eggs, I actually did check for the egg, and unfortunately the egg is gone. So I'm sure a little genet or civet or something like that came upon that egg and thought Christmas has come early and grabbed it for itself and then left and went off with it. Mr. P, are you asking, are there wild chickens here? Well, yes, there's a whole bunch of them that cackle away in the final controls. They constantly making quite a bit of noise. Chris doesn't think I'm very funny, but no, we don't have any kind of wild chickens. We have things that are fairly closely related in the form of francolins and guinea fowl. They're from the same kind, I suppose distantly from chickens, but no wild chickens in the park. I feel like chickens wouldn't do too well here. I feel like civets and genets would absolutely love a few chickens, and chickens would be a very tasty morsel for a number of our predators as well as our birds of prey. I think martial eagles would give the chickens a rough time if they were around. I know a lot of chicken farmers have a lot of problems with birds of prey as well as a lot of the sort of genets and civets, and particularly genets. Now actually I wanted to show you a very interesting thing. I've got to try and find the picture. I am going to warn you right now though that it is quite gruesome, so if you're squeamish, please look away now. It is not a time for you to be looking. But while we're talking about genets and feeding behaviors and them going after things, I'm going to just try and find you guys a very interesting picture, because it is a certain pattern that genets often use in order when they feed. And so like I say, if you are squeamish, please don't look now. This is not a picture for people that are squeamish. This is quite a disturbing photograph, but it is interesting in just the way that a genet will feed. So what you see here, unfortunately, is a little kitten that has been fed off by a genet. Now this is a typical genet patterning that you will see of a kitten being fed on, and it does happen to a number of different animals out here. In fact, genets themselves also have been seen to be eaten like this by leopards before, but they don't eat the head or the legs. They just eat in between everything, and they leave that like that. And this was sent to me by a vet friend who was asking me, would genets eat like this, because it's in a place in north of us, very close to the Kruger boundary, where a number of little kittens are being taken by a genet, and they were asking me if a genet would do that. But it's a typical genet feeding behavior. They'll often do this. They go after little kittens or anything out here, even wildcat kittens, caracal kittens, serval kittens, and they'll get their kind of back end and they go through the stomach contents, eat all the vital organs, and then they eat the sort of rib areas and all of that, but they leave just the legs, the tail, and the head. It's a pretty gruesome thing to see, but it is an amazing feeding pattern that they have. And the reason why it's like that is because they're bone structure, or their jaw structure is not strong enough to go through all of those. Something like a lion or a leopard or hyena has got the jaw power to be able to crush through all of that and swallow it, whereas genets with a very small jaw capacity don't have the ability to go through them and actually feed off them. So I know it's a disturbing picture, and I do apologize about showing you guys all of that, but it is interesting and it is part of nature and the way things go. Now I'm going to carry on towards Buffelshoek Dam in the hope of swimming elephants. I don't know if they'll be there, but one person who is out and about, who seems to have solved some of his issues and found the target animals that he's been looking for, is back up and running, and I wonder if he's going to find any more of these sleek spotted cats this afternoon.
Hello everyone. So we have found a zebra who has got a serious war story to tell. If you look closely, you can see a scar and some scratches there on its back right leg, and shame, obviously the flies are giving it a bit of a hard time. So that would have been where the right paw, I'm guessing, of a lion would have been sinking into its flesh, but it got actually more damage on the other side of its rump. Sadly though, we cannot see it from this angle, but if it turns around we'll see a big open gash that's currently healing, but it hasn't quite healed up perfectly. But once it does, what will be interesting is that the stripes won't align perfectly, and it's quite often that you see zebra in the situation. There you can just see the outside. You can kind of see the wound just over there, quite a big scar. And like I said, it happens quite often with zebra, and that's because they've got almightily big quads that they can kick a lion away off their bottoms, so they quite often escape the wrath of a lion. And imagine how cool that must be to say you've escaped a lion attack being a zebra. Yes, it does look quite painful indeed. A lot of you are saying ouch, but I think these animals are so tough and resilient. A wound like this is merely a little scratch, nothing too serious, even the big one on the left-hand side of its body. And there have been some remarkable stories of how various wildlife recover from the most horrific of injuries. There's a hyena that had its back legs, or its back feet, chewed off completely, and it learned to walk on its two front legs, just holding its back legs off the ground. So if an animal can overcome an injury that bad, I guess it emphasizes the fact that this is not too serious. A flesh wound. Now we've got some exciting news. Apparently there is a leopard not too far from where we are, so that is where we are heading, and it'll be the first leopard that I think I ever get to show you in the Mara, and I've been here quite some time now, so that's exciting. I had one sighting of one that was up a tree, but it was in a no signal area, so I don't think we managed to show you that one. So I'm looking forward to spending some time with the leopard. It's been a long time coming. I was actually just chatting with Jahawi yesterday, saying how few leopards I've seen. I've only had 3 sightings in total, 2 of which were basically in and around our camp outside of the reserve. And then the one was kind of down by Lookout Hill, a beautiful big male, but he sadly was in a no signal area.
Unfortunately, it seems the gremlins are still invading in the Mara. I think they're having a few issues with their internet this afternoon, which is sometimes happens when you're in the remote parts of the world, and hopefully it will be back up and running just now. So we'll just carry on our afternoon's bumble as we go along. It's still very warm, and whether or not there's going to be too much activity in the way of animals is going to be debatable. I think it's going to mean we have to wait till a little bit later until things will really come out. Even the antelope species that I have seen are all tucked up in the shade and really trying to just kind of take it easy and rest a little bit. So I'm going to try and head towards Buffelshoek Dam, and just in the hope maybe something is drinking there. If nothing, then we'll slowly meander southwards down towards Chitwa. Now, Quarantine, I believe, has been found. So those of you that are wondering where Quarantine is, he's found on Torchwood. He's still in the same place where they left him this morning, still sleeping, having a really good nap. Now, I wonder if he might wake up a little bit later and might come back towards Chitwa. It was such an incredible morning to finally get to see Quarantine. It's been a long time coming. I mean, it's been 3 years in this area trying to see him, so I'm super glad that I got to see him, and he was very obliging too. He posed in the best possible ways. He was up on termite mounds. He obviously finished his warthog and then was starting to move around, and when we left him, he was still stalking those warthogs that he had been after the whole morning. So it was really such a cool sighting, and super excited to see him. He's a really good looking fella, and I think he's going to be a serious contender for this area, in particular for Tingana's territory. And I'm really interested to see what goes on over the next little bit, because it seems as though there's some friction that's starting to build up between all of these male leopards. There's no doubt that there is a lot more kind of pressure on the likes of Tingana and Anderson through Djuma, Quarantine, this unknown male that's being seen in Buffelshoek, and then obviously the young boys, while they're not putting pressure yet, are going to be a force to be reckoned with if they're not dealt with anytime soon. So it's going to be a really interesting year up ahead as we go through these male leopards and see how they then fit in, how the puzzle then works. I wonder if we're going to see a very similar situation for Tingana that happened to Mvula, where he's going to be unfortunately outcast and pushed out and become nomadic. The thing is though, as I don't see Tingana lying down and sort of just being happy with the nomadic life like Mvula was, I feel like Tingana is going to be that kind of leopard that's going to fight for his life and fight for his way of life in this area, and that could be an interesting process. I think it's going to be a very difficult sort of time ahead for a number of the male leopards here. The density is just way too high for there not to be an explosion at some point between all of them. It's just like I say, and that's just the ones we know of. I mean, there could be young males pushing out from anywhere. We could see young males arriving from Kruger, we could see young males coming in from the west, from Singita, the south. You never know where males can arrive. I mean, at the end of the day, the Flat Rock male who was right down at Lioness Sands has ended up as the dominant male on Ndolozi, so they do move around, and who knows what pressures are going to be applied on the gentlemen of the north over the next little bit. It's certainly going to be an interesting one, and I'm looking forward to kind of being here to see what happens. I think some of this explosion is going to happen fairly shortly. I think we're going to see that there's going to be a number of these males that are going to come across each other's path over the next few weeks and months, and then something is going to happen, that's for sure. Now, while I explore Hippo Pools Road and head towards Buffelshoek Dam in the search of something, I believe Taylor McCurdy is doing exactly what I'm doing and is on an exploratory mission, but she's on the Talek River.
Hello everybody, we are exploring around Intrepids, which is a couple of camps in this area on the Talek River. I'm so sad that we don't have signal. This crossing that we just went through was actually amazing. I think I'm going to show you a video, because I took a video. I think that's what we're going to do right now. I just want to open everything. Where is my gallery? However, you are going to hear me. Well, Manu and I were getting excited. Are you ready? Go. So what's up, Manu? Very professional of me. Oh my goodness. Instagram. Yes, everyone, my phone's not on airplane mode because I'm trying to navigate through the Mara Triangle. How beautiful is that? Don't you think that's amazing? I do. Chris has just said I'm Steven Spielberg. So I'm a presenter and not part of the cam ops team because I don't think I'm very good at filming. Take a picture every now and then, but that's about it. I just thought it was amazing. I was so excited. It's just so beautiful and rocky and green, and there's not too much water. I'd actually like to go through there when it's flooding because we'd be fine. Basically you drive over the rocks, so it's not like you're going to sink or anything like that. It'd be a really nice crossing to go through. I think especially if someone was learning to go through river crossings, that would be a very safe one to sort of, well, to start off with. So I don't really know where we are, but it doesn't matter. I've never driven in this area before, and pretty. I do know though that we need to just get out of this little tunnel. There's lots of lodges here on my right hand side. You can't see them. But we're just going to sort of head in that direction, then we're going to actually try and hug the river and drive along it and see what exciting things we can find. I'd love to see a leopard again. It's been far too long. And after Tristan's luck and the sightings that he's had recently in the Sabi Sands with a leopard, I'm envious. I love lions, they're my favorite of the big cats, and they're always interesting to watch. But it is nice to see a spotted cat every now and then, and I'm hoping to spend some time with the cheetah too. That's of course one of the end goals over these next few days. Just scanning to see if there's any cats laying in between all these herds of animals. We've got some zebra up ahead which you can have a look at, and a warthog, and a wildebeest, and a waterbuck, and an impala. Not an impala, impalas. There's many impala. Okay, let's get ya. Please, can you repeat everything you just said? Because all I got was zebra. That's what I heard. It sounded really great. Ah, there we go. Miki, you're wondering why do these stripy animals, the zebra, migrate with wildebeest? Well, I suppose they share a very special relationship, and there's many different types of symbiosis out here between the various species. So one theory, I suppose, could be is that we know that zebra, being in the equus family, don't mind what type of grass they eat. It can be long grass, it can be short grass, it can be green grass, it can be brown grass, it can be red grass, it can be any color grass or any length of grass, and they will eat it. Wildebeest, however, are the pickier eaters. They prefer the short cropped grass, which is exactly what we've got at the moment. So between the buffalo, elephants, and zebra, and of course the wildebeest, they mow the grass down at various lengths. And actually buffalo are heavily responsible for coming through and shortening tall grasslands. But when you have thousands upon thousands of wildebeest coming in pockets and moving through areas, they'll do exactly the same thing. So I wonder if it just because of that symbiosis. However, I have heard, and I haven't seen it myself though, so I'm obviously just repeating what people have said to me. Apparently the zebra will actually start coming back earlier than the wildebeest, which is quite interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing this. I haven't seen it just yet, but like we were saying, there are a couple of thousand wildebeest that end up staying behind, that don't feel the need to migrate all the way to Tanzania and give birth. They'll just quite happy to give birth here, and I can see why. It's perfect habitat. The grass is nice and green now. Obviously all the other wildebeest have come through and done the hard work and shortened it, and now they can reap the rewards when we get all the short rains coming through now, and it's going to green it up nicely, and they're going to constantly keep mowing that grass nice and short. It was very nice. Safety in numbers as well. So, well, we say safety in numbers, but when I suppose you have a frenzy of thousands of animals stampeding into each other and around each other, although they actually seem to be quite coordinated when they do stampede, the wildebeest that is, in terms of staying together. You know, it's not very often that you'll see too many of them, getting a fright and veering off, and the lions will just sort of wait in between those pockets of animals and grab as many as they can. It's sort of like kids in a candy shop. You know, when you go around those sweet stores and your mom says, don't touch anything, don't taste it, it's stealing. Well, the lions just grab everything, and well, there's no one to tell them any other way. But it's beautiful, isn't it? I cannot tell you how excited I am this afternoon. It's so nice to see so many animals. It really, really is. It's so refreshing. There's an aeroplane now flying above us. Now, Riti, you're wondering if the zebras have a hierarchy? Well, yes. So they have a harem. So typically it will be the stallion that is the dominant one. He's got a very important role and a variety of roles. He's got to protect the herd, and he, of course, has to mate with all the females so he can pass on his genetics. Look, there we go. They're all grooming each other. And then the stallion will have a favorite mare too. And I'm sure then that mare will be the more dominant one within the herd. Oh, you see it with horses all the time. You'll have one or two that are particularly dominant and bossy around a paddock, and the others just sort of follow around and do everything that they do. I suppose it's like people. You get exactly the same thing with people. That is a beautiful shot, Manu. That is really nice. Oh, the grass is so short, you can just see and see and see. It's incredible. It really, really is. There's a couple of wildebeest running around. Hey, wait, we're having a race. Who's going to win? Who's chasing who here? There's 2 young males. Well, they don't even have to be young males. It could just be 2 males chasing one another around. Oh, they're all jogging. Off you go. You see, this is what I love about wildebeest, is that you can just watch them. Now they've disturbed the zebra. Yeah, be careful, because that zebra will kick you. So even zebra will kick wildebeest if they get too rowdy. But now they seem to have settled down again. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what bothers the wildebeest so much that they feel the need that just all of a sudden to start, galloping around, and then they'll stop and then put their heads down and eat. It's the most bizarre thing. Some beautiful impala rams also just moving through the back there. What a lovely afternoon. It has been a fantastic day. It really has. I suppose it's very hard to have a bad day, though, out in the bush when you get to do this all the time and see all these wonderful creatures. And if you are in a bit of a foul mood, taking a drive down into the open plains, 2 seconds later, you've forgotten. Oh, look at those wildebeest actually having a little bit of an argument to the right. There we go. They're on their knees and their horns are locked. This is not serious, though. If it was serious, they'd be kicking up a lot more dust and hitting each other at a bit more of a force. Oh, they're just sort of obviously a bit playful. It's quite cool to watch wildebeest fight, though. I haven't seen too many proper arguments. You'd think that their face would get grass burn, the way that they drag it on the ground like that. But maybe because of all that hair, it helps them. Maybe that's why their faces are so flat. To allow easier... I'm talking nonsense, of course. But it's just funny to think that they have long, flat faces like that so that they can move their heads along the ground a bit easier. Maybe that's why they've got that sort of darker stripe on their face too. It's mud. It's dirty. It's not. I'm talking nonsense. I need to leave. We've got to stop now. I'm getting too ridiculous. I'm too excited. And, well, you're going to be more excited than I am right now. The adrenaline has kicked in. The energy, my energy levels are through the roof right now.
Yay! Finally, my first leopard that I get to show you in the Masai Mara. And it looks like she's busy grooming, well, she is. It doesn't look like it. She is busy grooming herself, and hopefully she'll soon be up and active. Now, I'm fairly certain it's a female, just judging from her size. Even if it was a young male, he would probably have a bigger, chunkier head, which we'll hopefully see at some point shortly. She's really giving herself a good once-over. I cannot believe that this is the first leopard that I've showed you, and I arrived here on the 24th of June. July, August, September, October. 4 months. And isn't that exciting, exciting stuff? It's also good to know that she's very relaxed. We're not here alone. There's quite a few other vehicles here with us, and we're just sniping a gap between the vehicles of her, sniping through a little gap, and it looks like she is deciding to possibly get up and moving. Seems like she's having a hard time with some kind of a possibly ticks or lice. Something's giving her a hard time. She's trying to get rid of it. Now, it's going to be quite tricky to follow her if she does continue to move in and around what is quite a thick lugger that she is lying on the fringe of, but we're certainly going to be doing our best to stay with her. She's a very, very pretty female, quite a pale face, and she's putting on quite a show for us. Well, she's also, another promising thing is that she's not looking very full-bellied, so she might start taking us on a bit of an evening hunt. Haven't seen a lot of suitable prey for her in this area, but there could be some reedbuck hiding in and amongst the thickets. or some smaller prey like scrub hare and guinea fowl. The leopard certainly won't turn those opportunities down. Well, it's hard to believe, well, not hard to believe, but I often think to myself how many leopards we've driven past. I mean, it's so open here that you maybe get a little bit lazy. Hello, Mr. P. You have just equated seeing a leopard in the Mara to be like seeing a cheetah on Djuma, and that's a perfect way to break it down, because they are equally as rare in either wilderness areas. I'm told though that there's a female cruising around with some youngish cubs. And I think Tristan said they were possibly moving towards Djuma on this morning's safari, so who knows, maybe the roles will be reversed. You'll be viewing leopard in the Mara and cheetah on Djuma. So that's exciting prospects. It's still early, and I'm sure Tristan's doing his best to work that out, if in fact the cheetah did cross into Djuma, because if they didn't, it would be impossible for him to find them. Okay, so like I said, there's quite a few vehicles to contend with, but it is just popping out now, so we should get some good views here. Oh, it's so good to see a leopard again. And to be lucky enough to have it on the move, even just grooming itself, is a great start. She may even come down for a little drink here. There's a small little puddle. Just going to get into position before all the other vehicles do. Is she going to have a drink, or is she just going to walk on past? Time will tell. Beautiful. So it seems like having a drink is not high up on the agenda. Maybe she's already had one. But she could definitely do with a meal. So maybe that's what her primary aim is. Wonderful. Well, we're going to have to do some juggling and weaving to get into a better spot, which may take a moment or two. Trying to help set a precedent here amongst the guides. A few of them are a bit heavy-footed in scenarios like this, so I try and rather go extra slowly to show them how it should be done. Not sure how effective my theory is going to be, but at least we're doing it the right way. We're going to be able to snipe a view. Might be able to get one there. Have I gone too far? Or is it in the gap there? I may have gone too far. No, it is there. Hello Vera, you would like to know if there's a limit to how many, just stay zoomed in like that, if there's a limit to how many cars can be in the Mara at any one time, and no, there isn't. I think she's just slunk away there. There she is. She's very well camouflaged in the white dappled croton leaves. It's helping her blend in quite perfectly. Now she's just slunk out of shot. Let's see what our next best option is. So no, Vera, there's no limit to how many vehicles are in a sighting in the Mara. There, in theory, is a limit to how many people should be off-roading, but it may not be being policed as well as it should be. I'm not sure if we're going to get a view here. She just slunk off. Okie dokie. Well, let's just keep poking forward. We might get a little gap somewhere here. Ooh, it is very, very thick here. I think what we may need to do is go back around and cross over this lugger. Ooh, it's tempting to cross here, but we shouldn't. It's a little bit muddy down there, and we may get stuck. So we will go around. Hakuna gari iko nyuma. Sorry everyone, I'm having basically no comms with Kirsty, so it's making it tricky to chat with you and answer your questions. So apologies for that. I think I'm actually just going to wait here for a bit and see what she does. She could well continue along this riverbed and we could get a glimpse of her moving through here rather than racing off just yet. Is she going to pop out here? Tricky to know. She could quite easily have just plonked herself down on the behind a bush. When big cats do get up and moving, they sometimes don't move as much as they should. Okay everyone, we're going to send you across to Tristan and then we will try and call you back as soon as we get a better visual of this leopard.
Well, that's super exciting, Scotty. I'm so happy for you that you got to see a leopard in the Mara and put it on camera. It is the most epic thing, and I've seen everybody kind of gets very excited about it, and Taylor's had a chance with leopards and Brent, and now Scotty's finally got his chance, and seems that Scott's having the most insane game drive from leopard to cheetah, and I hope that it continues. And like I say, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy, and I'm super happy for him that he managed to get it. And you were saying that the roles hopefully can be reversed and we'll get cheetah this side. Unfortunately, I don't think so, because our cheetah family has gone back to Manyeleti. Their tracks are crossing back into the Manyeleti this afternoon, so they're not coming down to Djuma, but that's okay. We'll maybe try and find something else. I'm just going to try and scratch around and see what else there is. I'm heading slowly towards Chitwa Dam now. It's always a great place to be in the afternoons. Lots of things there, and we'll go catch up with our little baby hippo, see how it fared overnight. Maybe we can go and catch up with our plover chicks as well, and well, a little baby crocodiles. There's lots of little things all over Chitwa Dam that is perfect for a little afternoon kind of jaunt while it's still very hot, and then we can try and look for things a little bit later. It sounds as though, like I say, quarantine is still sleeping, and with Hosana it's difficult to say where he is. I've got one report that he's around Chitwa, the other report is that he's on Little Gari, and the other one is that he's on Vessel. So trying to wait for everyone to make up their mind as to where exactly this leopard is, because apparently he's now cloned himself 3 times and is on 3 different properties. But we'll see where he goes. If he's not there, he's not there. It's okay. We had an epic leopard sighting this morning, and Scotty's got the spots for this afternoon, so it's all good. Now there is a very it's flown away. I was going to say there was a very brightly colored bird there, but unfortunately it's gone and disappeared from view and out of the way, so we're not going to be able to see that individual, unfortunately. was a lilac-breasted roller, is what I was referring to. And unfortunately, the lilac-breasted rollers sometimes can be a little flighty. It was also quite far away, so the fact that it flew even further would have meant that it would have been a little dot on the horizon, and poor Senzo would have had to struggle to try and get it on camera. So we'll just leave the lilac-breasted roller for now. Now, it sounds like Taylor McCurdy has made her way across the river, and that there are numerous wildebeest around, which is really quite wonderful that the wildebeest are still hanging around even though we're going into November, and I'm sure she's absolutely loving every minute of it.